So I had to order this set from Amazon because I could not find it in any of the stores that were near me, and as you can tell, the box came absolutely mangled. It was awful, and even worse, the box itself was actually open, and it's not like someone actually opened it themselves, it just had not been sealed properly. As you can see, the tape is not cut, it's just not holding the top flap down, so therefore the box is just open. Although I checked inside and somehow it was not missing a single bag or the instructions or anything, and I thought about returning it, but nothing was missing, so I just decided to go ahead and take what I have because there wasn't really a point to wait for a new one. But still, to Lego for not sealing this properly and to Amazon for not handling it properly, I don't think this is acceptable. But now with all of that out of the way, as you can guys see, today we're going to be taking a look at 75374, the Onyx Cinder. This set just released on August 1st with 1,325 pieces and a retail price of $140. And if you didn't know, this ship is from the upcoming Star Wars show called Skeleton Crew, set to come out in December, hence why you probably don't recognize this ship or any of the characters included. Anyways though, on the back of the box you're going to get another render of this set along with pictures of all of its play features, and then actually opening up my already open box, on the inside you're going to find 13 separately numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and your sticker sheet in this cardboard case, with the sticker sheet having 17 stickers and the instruction manual being pretty hefty with 489 steps. The first minifigure we have up here is Neil, the minifigure that everyone has been talking about with this set. A lot of people have been hating on this figure, but I think it looks pretty cool and has a really unique head mold. If you didn't know, this is supposed to be like a kid version or the same species as Max Rebo from episode 6, and I just think it's pretty unique. It seems like it's going to be a unique character in the show, and that just makes for a really cool and unique figure. I do have to say though that the hair on the top of his head does look a bit strange. Anyways, then next up here we have Fern. This is just another one of the kids from the show, and there's not a whole lot going on here. This is a pretty nicely detailed figure that looks good for the most part, and she also has a double-sided face, and like Neil, she has a little flashlight. Next up here we have Wim, and this figure looks awesome because of his hairpiece. I just think it's really cool and unique, and I also like his torso print quite a bit, and as you can tell, he's got a pretty cool looking double-sided face that shows a sort of scared or kind of shocked look, and he also has a flashlight and a walkie-talkie. Then last for the kids, we have KB, and this figure is pretty cool looking. As you can tell, she's sort of got like a Lobot situation going on with her head print, but I think it looks pretty cool. It's got a unique hairpiece and some nice back printing, and she also has a double-sided face with the second face not having the mask over her eyes. And speaking of the mask, there is a little bit of printing that gets covered up by the hairpiece on each side as it kind of just extends all the way around her head. And then lastly, we have the one adult being Jod, who is like the leader of the kids in the show, and I think he's awesome. My favorite part is definitely that scarf piece around his neck. I think it adds some unique detail, and he too has a double-sided face as well as a pretty old school looking pistol. And I think for the most part, this minifigure lineup is about as good as it needs to be. It has the 4 main kids as well as the adult main character. I mean, I really don't know what else it could have added because I obviously haven't seen the show yet, but the trailer actually just dropped yesterday at the time that I'm recording this, and in the trailer there's 4 kids as well as Jod, so I mean that makes sense for this ship, with Neil probably being my favorite character. I just think that head mold is really unique, and Jod is probably at a close second, and actually Wim's pretty cool too because of that hairpiece. I mean, all of these figures are pretty good, but I think Neil's the best in my opinion. The ship itself is pretty interesting to say the least. It's definitely really unique compared to most of the other designs of Star Wars ships, and especially Lego Star Wars sets. As you can see here, there's quite a bit going on all throughout the ship, on the top and on the sides, and we're gonna dive into all of that. On the front here, on the left, there's this little gun that can move side to side, as well as this thing in the middle that can move up and down. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be, but it's there and it adds some detail, I guess. And then on the right, instead of another gun, there's gonna be a little light for some reason, which makes it look kind of disproportional, but it is what it is. And also, as you can see here on the bottom of this front part, it slopes down like this and looks nicely detailed. I appreciate they went out of their way to make this area look good when it could have just very easily been anti-studs. Anyways though, on the top of the front, you're gonna have this pretty cool shaped tiled panel piece, and then right behind that on the actual top, you're gonna see lots of detail as well as these white stripes that go across, and then some stickers which add some detail. However, like every sticker nowadays, they still have the problem where the actual color of the sticker is not the same color as the actual brick, and it just does not look good. I wish Lego would just find a solution to this problem already, because sometimes it really can throw off the look of sets. Anyways though, you also might have noticed that on the top here there is this little stud turret that can spin all the way around in 360 degrees, and you can fire it as you please. And then towards the back half of the top of the ship, there's just more detail and a lot more going on. These sort of transparent dome turrets right here can spin all the way around, and I think they look really cool. And then there's also another stud shooter on the back left side that can spin around, as well as this radar dish that can spin around and sort of of point up and down. Towards the back here on the left side is where you're also going to find the cockpit of the ship with even more stud shooters that you can fire as you want, as well as this little gun on the bottom that can spin around. It is kind of hard to maneuver, as you can see here, because there's not much room, but I do think it looks really cool. The top panel on the cockpit can very easily lift open to reveal a pretty simple interior with two stickered control panels, and as you'd expect, you can take Jod and Sim in here because I assume this is his ship and he's the one that's supposed to be flying it, and there's also room for his blaster as well. On the back of the top here, there's lots of really nice greebling and sticker detailing and just shaping in general. They did a really great job with it. I mean, obviously the sticker isn't the color it's supposed to be, but for the most part, it looks good back here. And this panel can actually like sort of lift open. I'm not sure if it's like meant to be an actual play function, but if you want to, it can move up and down. And then from there, you're going to see some nice back detailing, as well as this door or ramp that can open on the back that, as you can see here, is kind of tricky and annoying to open. But once you do open it, you're going to find two crates, with the smaller crate having like what looks to be a little pastry on the inside or a cake or something, and then the larger crate having what appears to be a carrot or a Star Wars carrot on the inside. The sides of the ship look really detailed as well. You can get a good look at the landing gear design, which I think is really cool, how it kind of goes from like the bottom to the top of the ship, and also the white stripes that are on the top kind of wrap around the side of the ship as well. And if you're wondering, yes, the ship does have an interior. On the right side here, you can fold the top panel up and then fold the bottom panel down to access a pretty cool interior with a little table in the middle and then a table off to the side with like a coffee pot and a drink on it, and 4 seats for the 4 kids. And as you'd expect, there's room for all 4 of them in here, as well as 2 clips at the top to hold some of their flashlights. Although I do have to say, this interior space is very crammed and hard to access. As you can see here, it's kind of tricky to get the figures in, especially the ones in the back. I mean, obviously it is possible, as you can see here. I just wish there was easier access to the interior. And then also, if you're wondering, this is what the bottom of the ship looks like. Just some detailing in the front, as I pointed out earlier, and then some anti-studs and landing gear in the middle. Now, the engines are the last thing I wanted to talk about because that's really the main feature with this set. As you can see here, all 6 of the engines have these stickers on the inside that sort of represent like the intakes of them, and then on the bottoms you're going to find the actual thrust sort of facing downwards, as well as these pretty cool looking wings that the back ones are attached to. But the main play feature is that you might have noticed earlier, there is this little switch right here on the top of the ship, and when you move it back and forth, as you can see, it sort of rotates the engines from facing downwards to facing forwards, and it's so simple, but it's so satisfying and fun to play with. And also, I just think ships that have engines like this in sci-fi in general are really cool, and it obviously works well as a Star Wars ship, and especially works well as a Lego set. Again, it's a really fun play feature that's very simple but very satisfying to play with, and it definitely makes this set. And then on top of that, the set itself is very easy to handle and pretty sturdy and does have some swooshability. Now, trying to decide on a rating and also if I should recommend this set to you guys or not is not very easy to do because obviously I haven't seen the show yet, though I do have to say it does feel like it's actually fairly priced. I mean, maybe like 130 would have been a bit better than 140, but compared to a lot of other sets in this August wave, it actually feels like it's more or less worth its price point. Although again, I haven't seen the show yet, it hasn't come out yet, so I really can't say if this is going to end up being an iconic ship or not, but I do have to say, if you want a really unique looking ship that will definitely add some character and spice up your collection, I think this might be a good set for you. But again, until this show comes out, I really just can't pinpoint on that, although I can give it a rating and I think it's really cool. The only downside is really the stickers, and other than that, I really can't think of anything else that's wrong with this set. Maybe it could include extra figures because 5 for $140 is kind of low, but at the same time, it includes all the main characters of the show, so it just makes sense to me. So I'm gonna be generous and actually give this set a 9 out of 10. The sticker discoloration and the price maybe being $10 more than it should be are really my only problems with it. Everything else is really cool, and I think this is a very unique set. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see the link on the screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75385 Ahsoka Tano's Duel on Peridea. This set will be releasing on August 1st with 382 pieces and a retail price of $55 US, which is extremely overpriced, but on the bright side, it is the very first set to include Thrawn since 2017, although unfortunately that might really be the only thing this set has to offer. Anyways, on the back of the box you're going to find another render of the build and the 4 pillars, as well as a few pictures at the top right showcasing the play features, and then opening up the box and digging breaking in, on the inside you're just going to find 3 numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and a pretty ridiculous looking sticker sheet. The first figure we have up here is the Night Trooper, and as you can tell, it's really just your standard Family Guy Stormtrooper with a few extra prints on the front and the back that do actually add some nice detail. And then underneath that, he's actually got a really cool looking zombie face print that even has some printing on the back of the head as well. And despite this having the oversized Stormtrooper helmet that LEGO needs to get rid of, the actual prints and detailing on this figure look pretty cool. Here we have Morgan Elsbeth in her sort of witch or night sister form, and I have to say, for the most part, I like this figure. There's no leg printing, but there doesn't really need to be leg printing because in the show there's not much detail on her legs. And on top of that, she includes a double-sided face, with the second one being this sort of angry, aggressive face. And then the best part is probably the Blade of Talzin, which is this really cool green transparent sword. I think it's a really unique weapon piece, and they actually got the color down pretty much perfectly. And then next up here we have Ezra Bridger, and this is actually the first Ezra that we've gotten in 8 years. The last one came out in 75158 Rebel Combat Frigate in 2016, and I have to say, for the most part, he looks pretty good. Those really large blue eyes are throwing me off a lot. I mean, I know he had bright blue eyes in the show, and LEGO pretty much recreated that as best as they could here, but at the same time, the way he looked in the show was pretty awkward to me and kind of threw me off. So because of that, despite LEGO doing as best they could, I think his LEGO figure just looks kind of awkward and strange too. On the bright side though, he's got a pretty cool hairpiece as well as a double-sided face print, with the second face being a pretty aggressive angry face. Then second to last here we have Ahsoka Tano, and I have to say, for the most part, this figure looks really good. She's got great printing all around, and I really like her light gray outfit, although the problem is with her arm printing. As you can see here, the white on her arm printing has a bit of an orange or pinkish tint to it, and that's because the orange color of her arm is bleeding through the white print. And this has been a problem on a lot of LEGO Star Wars figures recently, where the color of the plastic bleeds through the actual prints, and it ruined Commander Fox last year, and here it's making Ahsoka's arm print not look as good as it should. So I just really hope that someday soon LEGO will figure out a solution to this problem. Although on a lighter note, Ahsoka does have a double-sided face print, and she does include both of her white lightsabers. And then last but certainly not least, we have what's probably the best figure in this set, being Grand Admiral Thrawn, of course. And he really does look incredible. This is pretty much the perfect Thrawn figure. He's got dual molded legs, as well as a very sleek looking torso print, and a double-sided face print that also looks really good as well. Again, I think this is the best figure in this set. And overall, I have to say that this minifigure lineup is pretty solid. Yes, some of the figures have issues like Ahsoka's arm printing or the Family Guy Stormtrooper helmet, but overall this is a pretty solid lineup, and I think it's going to be the main draw for a lot of people that are buying this set. But now actually taking a look at the set itself, I have to say it actually looks better than I was expecting. I think the 4 columns actually look really cool, and the stickers definitely add some nice detail. However, despite them adding nice detail on the columns, I really wish they were printed for the price you're paying for this set. And on top of that, there's even more stickers on the actual base of the build, and these add detail too. However, I just do not think these should be stickers. This is definitely just overkill. Everything you see here is stickers on the columns, on the base. It's just too many for the price you're paying. And what's even worse is that you're supposed to put the figures all over this build, and if you're actually constantly using it, the stickers are going to wear very easily, especially the ones on the actual base. And not to mention, as I was building it, after a while it just got super tedious putting all of these on and was kind of annoying. So again, for $55, how overpriced this set is, I don't think it would have been much of a hassle to print these pieces. On a lighter note though, the back of the columns look good. There's some gold colored rods back here to add some detail, and it's not just the back of the plates. And also the base, the back is tiled off a bit, and there's some more gold pieces to add some detail. And also, speaking of the base itself, it's actually pretty cool how they were able to get this shape with it. Besides having to apply all these stickers, it was actually a pretty decently fun build, and there were some pretty cool techniques used. Now you might have noticed that on the side here there are these gears that you can spin, and when you spin these, the 2 smaller circles rotate, and then that big circle in the middle can also rotate as well. You just have to do it manually. And then obviously you can take all of your figures and place them all over the base of the build, putting the characters with lightsabers on these spinny parts. And then this is really the main play feature of this set. You can spin these gears on the side and it spins the circles, and you can kind of pretend like they're fighting, which actually works decently well and is going to be a pretty fun play feature for kids. For adults though, I have to say, when the figures are on the build like this, it is also a very nice looking display piece. It's super clean and minimalistic, and it's almost even like a diorama in a sense. I just think it looks really good. Although what I don't like is that underneath the pieces that spin, if you lift it up, there's just a blue plate underneath, and if you're looking down at it, these blue pieces bleed through very noticeably, and like this shouldn't even be happening. I don't understand why LEGO couldn't have just made those black pieces or gray pieces. I mean, I know blue is cheaper and they usually try to hide color pieces within the builds of Star Wars sets, but in this case they're not very well hidden action, and they bleed through pretty noticeably. And then the last play feature is that on the back here, you might have noticed there is this little like seesaw looking or catapult looking piece, and you're supposed to sit Ezra on it and push it down, and it's supposed to launch him off and sort of be able to recreate the jump he makes in the actual Ahsoka show. It's a cool idea and a cool feature, but as you can see here, it doesn't really work very well. But I mean, it's the thought that counts, I guess. Now, would I recommend this set to you for $55? And no, man, of course not. The figures, for the most part, are really good, especially Thrawn. I think that's going to be a driving factor for a lot of people. Although for $55, unless you just really want them, I would just wait until it's on sale. This set realistically should not be any more than $40. And on top of it being overpriced, there's an absurd amount of stickers that are going to wear off very easily. And there's also problems with some of the figures like Ahsoka and then the Family Guy Stormtrooper helmet, which LEGO always uses, but I'm always going to point it out because it looks awful. But really the main two issues to me are just the stickers and the price. This set definitely did have potential, and for the most part it looks good on display, although those two factors are holding it back quite a bit, to me at least. So because of that, I'm feeling a 7.7 out of 10. Again, the stickers and the price are just the main issue. If this set was $40 and had all printed pieces, I mean, I'd probably give it up to a 9 out of 10. But like I said, it had potential and just seemingly got kind of ruined. Anyways guys, let me know what you think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see me on screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the most hyped up LEGO Star Wars sets of 2024, being 75388 Jedi Bob Starfighter. This set will be releasing on August 1st with 305 pieces and a retail price of $40 US. Now, Jedi Bob, one of the most legendary minifigures of all time. If you don't know who he is, all the way back in 2002, a little set came out being 7163 Republic Gunship, and that set was based off of the scene in episode 2 where the Jedis are fighting in the Geonosian Temple and all the gunships come to the rescue. And in that scene, there are just so many different unnamed Jedis on screen everywhere that LEGO just decided to throw in an unnamed Jedi into this set. And his official title is actually just Jedi Knight in the set, but then fast forward 7 years to the 2009 LEGO Star Wars Visual Dictionary. Within that book, he was just randomly given the name Jedi Bob. And ever since then, his name has just been called Jedi Bob, and he has been a staple and sort of a meme within the LEGO Star Wars community. And then fast forward 15 more years, today in 2024, we are getting a show called Rebuild the Galaxy, which is basically going to be a show where a kid finds a Jedi holocron and it just alters reality in Star Wars. And the creators of this show are actually using this as an excuse, or just a reason, I guess, to bring back Jedi Bob. And then 22 years later, after the gunship released, we finally have him again in his own official set. And that pretty much explains why this set you're seeing here even exists. Now, on the back of the box, you're going to find another render of the Starfighter, as well as all of the different play features. And then actually opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 4 separately numbered bags, as well as this loose white plate right here, and then your instruction manual and a sticker sheet. The first figure we have up here is called an Akbar Trooper. It's a bit of a weird looking figure. It's literally just a Mon Calamari head on top of a Phase 1 Clone Trooper body. I mean, there's literally nothing else to say. That's exactly what it is. It's pretty weird, but in the trailer of the show we see a lot of weird stuff happening, so I guess it makes sense. And then next up here we have Servo, or SRVO, and he just appears to be a modified or custom gonk droid. Not a whole lot going on here, but I like his blue and gray color scheme, and it's always nice to get unique droids. And then last, and certainly not least, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Jedi Bob, and he is almost exactly the same as the original one that came out in 2002, although as you can see here, this is not his original face print. This is actually a new face print, and he has a double-sided head, with the second face being his original classic one. And also his torso on the new one is light gray compared to the dark gray of the old one. Unfortunately, I don't own the old one, but there is this picture that Brickset put out on Instagram that compares the two, and as you can see, the old one is a bit of a darker gray compared to the newer one, which is light bluish gray, and that combined with this double-sided face print technically makes this one an exclusive and separate figure. Now, this minifigure lineup is very simple, but honestly it also is pretty intriguing, not only because of obviously Jedi Bob, but I think the Akbar Trooper is pretty cool as well, and it's really nice to see a unique gonk droid. I don't know if we've ever gotten a sort of custom or modified gonk droid before, although I do think for $40 it does feel like 3 figures isn't quite enough, although I can't really critique it because I haven't seen the show yet, so I don't know what else they could have added. All I can really say is that an extra Akbar Trooper might have been nice. Anyways, moving on to the actual Starfighter itself, I have to say I really like how it looks for the most part. I think a solid red and white colorway was the best option, and I love the patterns on the ship with the red and white stripes, but actually digging into the nitty-gritty details on the front here, there is going to be a sticker, as well as another sticker right in the middle, and then a third sticker right in front of the cockpit. Now the stickered piece in the middle can actually pop off, and then on the inside you're going to find a little storage area with a carton of blue milk as well as a banana. And then moving on to the back here, you're going to have some gray mixed in with stickers on either side that I think for the most part looks pretty good. As you can tell, they are supposed to be like continuous stickers, so obviously there's a gap between them, but it's not super noticeable, and I think the gray goes pretty well with the red and the white. And then also the area built around his cockpit looks good with the fin on the back and then the red pieces wrapping around it. It's a pretty cool looking technique, and I think they did a good job. And then the cockpit can very easily open, where you're going to find a printed control panel with a pink brick showing underneath that. As some of you might know, the LEGO Star Wars design team often tries to hide pink bricks in Star Wars sets for fun, and they put a few pink bricks in this set, although as you can see here, one of them is kind of showing through the cockpit. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not, but here it is. But anyways, then you can sit Jedi Bob in the cockpit. His cape kind of prevents him from sitting down on the studs, so I kind of just sit him in here without attaching him in, and then you can just fold the hatch back down and it's ready to go. And then right down from the cockpit, you're going to have the massive laser cannons on either side of the ship, and this is actually where my only problem with this set comes from, and it's just that I think these cannons on the side just look a bit awkward. They're kind of just thrown on there and they sort of mess up the sleekness of the Starfighter, especially when you're looking at it straight down. It just looks kind of awkward, and I think if they were maybe shorter, or if there were some like fins on the back here like on the Anakin's custom Jedi Starfighter from 2015, it would have helped a lot, just something to complement the cannons on the back. But since there's nothing, it just looks kind of awkward, and that's really my main complaint with this Starfighter. But with that being said, you might have noticed that underneath the two cannons there are spring-loaded shooters on each side that you can fire as you please. And then on the very back here, you're going to find three engines that are sort of in this staggered position. They're very simple, but I think they look pretty cool. Flipping the set over, on the bottom side you're going to find how the wings are connected and how they're able to hold that angle. And then you're also going to find two clips, one where you can put Jedi Bob's lightsaber, and then another clip to hold an extra spring-loaded shooter if you want to do that. And then right in front of the clips there's going to be this little piece of landing gear that folds down, and it just ever so slightly holds the big engines on the front up. As you can see here, it's doing just a little bit. And then also in the very back there are these few slope pieces that are acting as landing gear as well. Now speaking of the big engines on front, I think they look really cool. They're pretty tricky to get on camera, but they definitely add a lot of character, and I like how they're sort of inspired by the engines on Anakin's custom Jedi Starfighter from 2015. Now would I recommend this set to you for $40 US? And well, yes, actually. And honestly, even if I said no, that probably wouldn't stop anyone. I think everyone's gonna want to get their hands on this because the Starfighter looks pretty cool, and obviously because it's Jedi Bob. I mean, he's extremely legendary and everyone wants to get their hands on him. And despite it not feeling like it's quite worth $40 because it might be missing an extra Akbar trooper, I still think lots and lots of people are gonna get this set. And again, speaking of the price, the actual Starfighter itself does really feel like it's worth $40. I just think the minifigure lineup is the only thing that's lacking. But at the same time, I haven't seen the show yet, so I don't really know what else they could or should add, so I don't really want to count that against it too much. Although what I will count against it is those two large cannons on the side. Again, I just think they look a bit awkward, and I think there should be something to complement them. So because of that, I'm feeling a pretty generous 9.1 out of 10. So far, I do think this is the best Rebuild the Galaxy set, just right ahead of the Millennium Falcon, which I actually gave a 9 out of 10. I haven't gotten the X-Wing and TIE Fighter set yet, but honestly, based off the product images, I think that one's probably going to be the worst of the three. So again, I think this one is the best, just ever so slightly ahead of the Falcon. And again, my main gripe with it is just the big cannons on the sides. Let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you see them on the end screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the most bizarre LEGO Star Wars sets ever made, being 75389, the Dark Falcon. This set will be releasing on August 1st with 1,579 pieces and a retail price of $180, and possibly has one of the most legendary minifigure lineups of all time, including Evil C-3PO, Darth Jar Jar, Darth Rey, and of course the white Darth Vader. Now this set is based off of the upcoming LEGO original content series called Rebuild the Galaxy, which from what I understand is a show where this kid discovers this ancient Jedi holocron or something, and it pretty much alters reality and makes everything opposite and turn upside down, where bad guys turn good and good guys turn bad, etc. So with that being said, that kind of explains why this set even exists and where all of this is coming from. And speaking of that show and this set, I'm not the biggest fan of the multicolored box art. I just think the multicolored bricks kind of clash with the black on the box art, and it just doesn't look very appealing, but maybe that's just me. The back of the box looks better though, where you're gonna find a nice render of this ship on what looks to be a beach, along with all the figures and multiple pictures showing all the different play features in this set. And then opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 17 separately numbered bags, as well as this unnumbered bag that holds some larger pieces, and a cardboard box with your instruction manual and a pretty big sticker sheet. Now taking a look at the minifigures, first up here we have Evil C-3PO, or what LEGO calls Bounty Hunter C-3PO, and I think this figure looks really cool. It's essentially just your typical C-3PO, although he's got red eyes and his left arm is black, as you can tell. It's fairly simple and not super unique like some of the other figures in this set, although I still think it looks really cool, especially that black arm, and on top of that we just very rarely see different versions of C-3PO in general. Then next up here we have Beach Luke Skywalker, which is a very wonky figure, but I honestly think he's pretty fun and he looks pretty cool and unique. He's got a pretty cool face print with those sunglasses, as well as this blue printed beach shirt that has all these pictures and patterns on it, and as you can tell he has a double-sided face and comes with a little carton of blue milk. Then next up here we have Darth Dev, which from what I know is just the main antagonist in the upcoming show, and I have to say for the most part he looks pretty dang cool. He's got great printing all over and even a cape and then printing underneath that cape, and he's also got printing on his left arm, although I think his face print that's shown here doesn't really go with the rest of his prints, if that makes sense. Obviously I haven't seen this character in the show yet, although I do think it would be really cool if he came with some sort of helmet. It would go with his body print a lot better, although on the bright side he has a double-sided face, and his double-sided face is sort of this Sith angry face that I think looks a lot better than the other one. It just complements the rest of his printing a lot better. I still wish he came with some sort of helmet though, although I can't really count that against this set because he most likely does not have a helmet in the show. Then next up here we have Darth Rey. This is one of the few figures in this set that wasn't made up for this show because she actually briefly appeared in episode 8 or episode 9, I don't remember, but she appeared in one of the sequel movies, and I remember back in the day a lot of people were making custom figures of her, so it's nice to see that we've finally gotten an official LEGO version. It's pretty simple, it gets the job done and includes her double-bladed lightsaber. There's no leg printing, but I don't think she necessarily needs it. It looks about as good as it needs to. Then next up here we have one of the most hyped up figures in this set, being Darth Jar Jar. Yes, Darth Jar Jar finally exists in LEGO form, and he's actually canon now, I guess, because of the show. Now I'm pretty sure this is the same Gungan or Jar Jar head that they have always been using, but as you can see it still looks good, and then underneath it on the back he's got back printing, and he comes with a double-bladed lightsaber, which is just even cooler. Now he doesn't have leg printing, which is a bit annoying. I mean, it wasn't annoying on Rey because Darth Rey's not as big of a character as Darth Jar Jar, so I wish they would have gave him leg printing and sort of just gone all out since they were making this figure, but it's not that big of a deal. That's again just a pretty small nitpick on my part. For the most part, I think he looks really cool, and I'm very happy that we finally have this figure and that this character even exists. Then last, but certainly not least, we have the most hyped up figure in this set, being the white Darth Vader, or what LEGO calls Jedi Vader. And man, I have to say, this figure is freaking awesome. And I mean, he's really got it all. He's got a white cape, he's got printing underneath that white cape, he's got great looking arm printing on both of his arms, as well as a blue lightsaber and this sort of old man looking face. His face print does kind of throw me off a little bit because, I mean, obviously I haven't seen him in the show yet, so I don't know what he's going to be like, but on this figure he just looks like an old man in a white Darth Vader outfit. And if you're wondering, no, he does not have a double-sided face print. Now, as good as this figure is, there is one issue that I and a lot of other people have with it, and that's that the eyes on his helmet aren't blue, and I'm not sure if he has light blue eyes in this show or not. I assume he doesn't because of this figure, but I still think it really would have helped this helmet and sort of finish out the look of the figure, because honestly his helmet is a little bit bland and kind of looks like one of those prototype molds. So again, I just think the blue eyes would have helped a lot, but besides that, this is still a very awesome and very unique figure that lots and lots of people are going to be trying to get their hands on in the upcoming months. Oh, and if you're wondering, here's what he looks like next to the normal Darth Vader. It's pretty dang cool. Now this minifigure lineup is pretty legendary to say the least, and I think this lineup and this set as a whole are probably going to go down as a staple in LEGO Star Wars, and there's absolutely no way that LEGO would have done this on their own, so I really got to give flowers to the producers and the writers and creators of this upcoming show, because they really found a way or even an excuse for all these figures to exist in some form of Star Wars content, and even better, as actual LEGO figures. Again, LEGO would have never done this on their own without this show, so I really got to give credit where credit is due. These guys are doing an incredible fan service. Although that's enough talk about the figures, let's take a look at the actual Dark Millennium Falcon itself. And I have to say, this thing is freaking insane. It's not perfect though. There are a few issues I have with it, and we are going to dive into all of that. What I'm going to do is cover everything on the outside first, and then we're going to take a look at the interior. On the very front area here, there is some nice greybling on both sides, as well as a few minor details on top, and one thing you might notice is that inside those little holes, there are some spring-loaded shooters, and with that being said, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just put your finger down in in there and fire off both the sprinkler shooters. It is kind of tricky sometimes. Sometimes they get caught on stuff and don't really fire very far, but eventually it's pretty easy to get the hang of. And then there's some minor detailing on the front half of the top here, all the way around to the radar dish, which has now been turned into like a miniature Death Star laser. It's on a ball joint, so you can move it around whichever way you want. And when I first saw this in the product images for this set, I thought that the green didn't really go well with the red and the black. However, now seeing it in person, I have to say it does look pretty cool. Then you're going to have a line of stickers and greebling all the way to the cockpit, and I have to say the dark red on the cockpit goes so well with the black of the rest of the ship. It just looks very, very clean, and I think dark red was just the perfect color to go with to complement the black. And not to mention, all of the cockpit pieces are printed. It can pop off very easily to reveal a very, very basic interior with just a joystick and a printed tile for a control panel. And if you want, you can put two of your characters in here. It is pretty cramped, but they do fit. And then from there, you can just easily put the cockpit piece back on. Now, unfortunately, right next to the cockpit here, there is this massive gap where you can very easily see into the inside of the ship. And it's so big that I honestly at first thought I built this wrong, but no, this is actually how this set is. I think this very easily could have been covered up, and it is a bit annoying. Anyways though, the gun on the very top here looks pretty cool with a sticker on the back of it, and you can turn it all the way around and point it up and down. And as you can see, when you lift it up, there's actually another sticker right under it. The hallways that go to the docking bay have a bit of detail on the top of them. There are these stickered circular tiles that I wish were printed. I usually don't mind stickers because they add detail, but I wish these ones were printed because it just got a bit repetitive putting these on. And then the actual docking bays themselves look pretty simple on both sides. There's not a lot to see. Then moving on to the back half of the ship, all of the exhaust vents are stickers too. And again, I really wish these weren't stickers. There's a lot of other stickers in this set that I don't mind, but all of these circular tiles on top were pretty repetitive to put on, and they're on the outside of the set, so if you put them on wrong, they're pretty noticeable. Just in my opinion, I think it would have been a lot better if these specific pieces were prints. It wouldn't have been as repetitive, and it would look a lot better back here. Continuing on to the very back though, it looks pretty nice. There's greebling all around, as well as these red engines. I think it looks great back here. I really have no complaints with the back. They did a good job. And then here's what the bottom looks like. There's not a whole lot going on, just the undersides of all the plates, and then 4 legs for landing gear, and then this other little turret right in the middle that is on a ball joint, allowing you to move it around however you want. Now, to get into the inside and access the interior, every single panel on the top can actually very easily fold open, and then from there you have pretty easy access to the full interior. Starting on the front left side here, there are 2 brick-built beds, as well as a clip on the wall to hold a spring glitter shooter or a lightsaber if you want to, and you can take any of your figures and very easily put them on the beds. And then right next to that, there is a pretty elaborate control panel with 3 stickers that is right in front of this brick-built throne that can very easily slide out. And then right behind that, there is this red diamond piece. I'm not sure what this is. I haven't really done my research. I'm sure some of you guys might know, or it's just not revealed yet because the show's not out. But anyways, this throne is made for Darth Jar Jar. You can very easily sit him in it and then slide it back in. And then Darth Jar Jar himself has a freaking throne. Like, how much better could it be? They actually made a meme into an official Lego figure. They gave him a double-bladed lightsaber, and now he has a whole entire freaking throne inside the Millennium Falcon. Anyways, continuing on, next to that, at the front right side of the ship, there's not really anything here, just some extra room to sit in any of the figures if you want to. Although I do have to say, one thing I don't like is that this panel right here is very, very loosely held on, and it wiggles back and forth a lot and feels very flimsy and fragile, and I don't really like that. Anyways, then right behind that, there's this little tile on the ground that you can push down, and it actually pops down and is the boarding ramp. You can just barely see it under the ship from the outside, and obviously it's not big enough to fit a figure under, but it is still pretty cool and is a nice little feature. And then you can just very easily raise it up and attach it back on. On the very top, this whole circular panel that the gun is on can actually fold open, and then this little 2-person seat can slide out from the inside, and you're supposed to put 2 figures on there and slide it back in, then close the top, and I guess it's supposed to be like they're controlling the main gun. Then on the back right side, there is this little crate here that has a holocron, I guess, inside of it. Then next to that, you're going to find the hyperdrive, or what I think is supposed to be the hyperdrive, with a pretty cool looking sticker on top of it. And then in the back left side, you're going to have what is probably the best play feature on the interior of this build, which is a little gaming area with 2 couches with stickers on them and a TV with a video game version of Djarik. And there's even a stickered 1x2 tile on the ground that's supposed to represent like the actual video game cartridge itself. And then next to that is like a little brick built PS5. And then over on the corner, you're going to have a table with a controller on it. And I just think this is really fun and clever, especially the little miniature PS5. And you can take Beach Luke Skywalker and sit him on the couch with his controller like he's actually playing the video game version of Djarik. And again, it's wonky, but I just think this is a really fun area of the interior. Anyways, then in the middle of the back, you're going to have these 4 red transparent pieces, and the front one can easily pop off. And what you're supposed to do is put white Darth Vader in here, and then put the piece back on, and it's supposed to be like he's in jail, like they've captured him, which is kind of weird. I mean, I obviously haven't seen the show yet, but I assume that both Beach Luke Skywalker and White Darth Vader are good guys, except Beach Luke Skywalker's playing video games and White Darth Vader is in jail, or at least that's how they have it on the back of the box. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but hey, those are two play features. And then also, not to mention, on the back left side, you're gonna have a little green surfboard on the wall that's supposed to belong to Luke Skywalker. And then that is all there is to see with the interior of the ship. You can just fold the panels back down and you are ready to go. Now, would I recommend this set to you for $180? And I have to say, I'm definitely not against it. If you're looking for one of the big $150 plus play sets, this one is definitely a good option. Now, there are some other sets in this price range, like the Ghost from last year for $160, which I honestly think is actually a better build than the Dark Millennium Falcon. However, if you want to go all out, if you want all of these awesome and legendary minifigures, if you want this super unique all black and red Millennium Falcon, then I think this is actually worth $180. Yes, a LEGO Star Wars set in 2024, actually feeling like it's worth its retail price. That doesn't happen very often. Although again, there are a few problems I have with it, like Darth Vader not having blue eyes, the big gap at the cockpit, and then all of these stickers on the back, which I wish were printed. So because of those few things, I'm going to take off 1 point, so I'm feeling a pretty strong 9 out of 10 for this set. I think it's already iconic, and I think in 10 years from now, this is going to be a very legendary set and a staple of LEGO Star Wars. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see the link on screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75393 TIE Fighter and X-Wing mashup. This set just released on August 1st with 1,063 pieces and a retail price of $110. And now this set is from the upcoming LEGO original content show called Rebuild the Galaxy, and it has a cool feature where you can actually switch out the wings on both the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter. And speaking of the sets from this show, so far I haven't really been the biggest fan of the box arts. I just think that colorful brick stripe that goes down the middle is kind of tacky looking, but maybe that's just me. Anyways, though, on the back of the box, you're going to see a render of what the set looks like with the wings switched around, and then actually opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 8 separately numbered bags, as well as 1 instruction manual for your TIE Fighter, 1 instruction manual for your X-Wing, and a sticker sheet with 11 separate stickers. The first figure we have up here is the one that everyone is talking about with this set, being L3GO, and if you couldn't put it together, that spells out LEGO, and this droid is basically the LEGO colors, being red, white, and yellow, but everyone is talking about this droid and making fun of it because it looks like it's from McDonald's. I think LEGO's intentions were pretty cool to name it L3GO and have it be the LEGO colors, but myself and many other people really can't unsee that this droid looks like it came from a Happy Meal. Here we have the X-Wing pilot, or Rebel pilot, whatever you want to call him, and he's just your standard pilot. There's not a whole lot to see here, but he does look good, and he does have a pretty cool helmet print that does kind of have the same colors as L3GO, and as you can see here, he does include a double-sided face. Next up here we have Yessie Scala, or Scala, I don't know how to say her name, but she's just a new character from the show, and I mean, she looks decent, nothing to go crazy over. She's got a pretty cool looking hairpiece, as well as this pretty unique looking brick built staff and a double-sided face. Here we have Sig Griebling. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be the main character of the upcoming show. Again, like the other one, there's not a whole lot to see here, nothing to go crazy over. He's just a pretty normal looking minifigure, although he does have a double-sided face and a pretty cool looking staff, as well as what I think is supposed to be a holocron. Then lastly, we have the TIE pilot. This is the same pilot that came in the Mandalorian Fang Fighter and TIE Interceptor set from last year, and it's just your standard up-to-date modern TIE pilot. There's nothing crazy to see, but it does look really good. And honestly, that's kind of the theme with this whole minifigure lineup. There's nothing really outstanding, but none of the figures are bad. I think the best minifigure is probably the X-Wing pilot, but other than that, the other ones are kind of just take it or leave it. They're not awful figures, but they're just, again, nothing to go crazy over. And now taking a look at the actual builds themselves, starting with the TIE Fighter, I have to say it's not my favorite. My main issue is with the cockpit windshield. I just think it's kind of weird how the actual windshield itself is so small. I have not seen anyone else mention this, but I just think it's so awkward how the actual windshield piece is so small compared to the rest of the size of the cockpit. It really throws off the look for me quite a bit. And then it gets even worse up top. Obviously, since this TIE Fighter is downsized, there's not room for an actual folding hatch, so they use stickers, and as you can see, there's just a massive gap right through the stickers that are supposed to represent the hatch, and it looks terrible. And then also, not to mention, on the sides or the top here, you can see 2 massive green spring-loaded shooters just sticking right out the back. And there is a very specific reason that they put them on the sides like this that I'll show later. However, still to me, I think it looks pretty bad and throws off the look of the TIE Fighter. And what's even weirder is that you have these red transparent pieces right down here on the front that are supposed to represent the actual lasers on the TIE Fighter, but then on the sides you have giant green spring-loaded shooters, and the green and the red don't mix well, and it doesn't look good, to me at least. The very back isn't bad though. There's just some stickers that represent the engines, as well as a little black tile piece in the middle. Now, to access the interior, you just lift the front piece up right here, and I said interior, but there's actually nothing on the inside. There's not any control panels, not even stickered control panels. I feel like the least they could have done was throw in some stickers in here, but there's nothing. Although, as you'd expect, you can easily grab your TIE pilot and sit him in here and then fold the hatch back down. The wings are probably the only redeeming quality about this TIE Fighter, to me at least, because TIE Fighter wings are kind of just hard to mess up. Regardless though, you're going to see some pretty decent detailing with a sticker in the middle and some grill pieces and detailing around the center. I've seen a lot of people complaining online about these dark gray pieces on the front here that are obviously not matching the rest of the color palette of the wings, and yes, that is annoying, but to me at least, that's honestly the least of my concerns with this build. The real bad stuff is around the cockpit with the windshield piece and the sticker on top and the spring-loaded shooters. It just does not look good to me. And you know, if you're new to collecting LEGO Star Wars, you might not think this TIE Fighter is that bad, but if you've been collecting for at least 7 or 8 years, you'll know that these are the type of TIE Fighters that we used to have, and now we have this, and I mean, the difference is just night and day. The TIE Fighter style that LEGO used to use was just leagues and leagues better in my opinion, and obviously a TIE Fighter like this is way too big to fit in a 2-in-1 set. This set would be like at least $150, but if they're gonna downsize them like this, they at least need to put in more effort, because this is just ugly compared to what we used to have, because again, the difference is just night and day in how good the old ones look and how bad this one looks compared to the old ones. So again, I know they have to downsize, but man, they can do better than this. On a lighter note though, the X-Wing is actually pretty good. My favorite thing about it is that they actually got the shape of the nose down right. Usually with most LEGO X-Wings, the sides of the nose are flat, when if you look at an actual X-Wing, they're not supposed to be flat. They do come down to a bit of a point, and on this one, they actually got the shape right. The sides of the nose aren't flat, and they come down to a point, and it looks really, really good. And also, when you're looking at it from top down, the nose does slightly slope inwards to the very tip. You also might have noticed there is a sticker right here on the front, and then right behind that is going to be a printed windshield piece, and as you'd expect, you can open it up to find a little printed control panel, and then you can very easily sit your pilot in there and close the windshield piece back down, and then take the McDonald's droid and sit it in the spot right behind the cockpit. Now, my only gripe with this X-Wing is towards the back. There's actually some pretty big gaps between the body and the wings. It just looks a bit off, and the reason there are gaps right here is because the wings are actually connected with just hinges. It doesn't use the rubber band method that's found on most other LEGO X-Wings, so to open the wings, you just manually grab each individual wing and fold it open. And also, there is landing gear on the bottom that can fold up as well. And I have to say, it does look pretty dang good when the S-foils are open like this. I'm actually gonna go so far to say that this is one of the best looking X-Wings that LEGO has ever made. They got the shaping of the nose down perfectly, the wings look really good, and it's very sleek. Although again, like I said, my only gripe is with the gaps on the back. Now, if you're wondering what the wings themselves look like, there's just some minor detailing with some stickers. They look about as good as they need to, and the actual laser cannons themselves look really good. I've seen a lot of people online complaining about how they don't like these circular pieces on the end because they're not necessarily accurate, and yes, they're not technically accurate. However, I actually like them quite a bit because it gives off this pretty interesting retro look that I think is pretty fun. Here's what the back looks like. The thrusters look pretty good, and then there's some minor detailing with a sticker there in the middle, and also there's this little piece that can fold open right here that's kind of like a hood to access the engine, which I think is pretty cool. Here's what the bottom looks like. There's not a whole lot. You can just get a better look at the landing gear, as well as some spring-loaded shooters that are on the bottom wings that you can, you know, fire as you want to. Although speaking of the landing gear, one thing I didn't mention earlier is that for some reason it's like super tall. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it does kind of look a bit awkward because it's just so tall and for no reason really, especially when you compare it to some of the older X-Wings. As you can see, the landing gear is just a lot taller. Again, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I thought I might as well point it out because it does look a bit strange. Now, as I showed earlier, the main play feature with this set is how you can switch the wings around, and to do this, on the bottom of both the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter, there are these little pins that sort of hold the wings in place that you just very easily have to pull out, and then from there, the wings on both models just very easily pop off. They're just held in by one Technic pin, and all you do is just pull it straight out. And then from here, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just switch the wings around on both builds, and then you put the pins back in to hold the wings in place. And a lot of you guys might think this looks weird or think it's some type of gimmick, but I'm gonna be honest, I really like this. And the main reason is that this is very clearly a nod to Star Wars Uglies. If you don't know what the Star Wars Uglies are, you have to be very tapped into Star Wars lore and Star Wars Legends, but basically they're just bootleg starfighters that pirates or scavengers would build, and they would switch the wings around basically exactly like in this set. And ever since I was a kid, I've always been fascinated by these starfighters because I think they're really unique and really strange and wonky looking, and I like that. And then much to my surprise, we kind of have them in a Lego set now. It came out of nowhere, and I really appreciate this because I think the producers of the show are clearly making a nod to OG Star Wars Uglies. And also, like I mentioned earlier, the reason the TIE Fighter has these spring-loaded shooters on the outside of the cockpit is because of this play feature, because obviously the X-Wing spring-loaded shooters are on the actual X-Wing itself, so I guess when it gets put on the TIE Fighter, it technically wouldn't have any spring-loaded shooters, and LEGO thinks that's a necessity. So since they wanted this ship to have spring-loaded shooters so bad, I think they could have put them on like the bottom of the X-Wing or something, because again, they just make that TIE Fighter look super ugly. Anyways though, I think the TIE Fighter cockpit with the X-Wing wings looks the best, especially if you have like a display stand like this. It looks pretty cool. The X-Wing with the TIE Fighter wings is cool too, although I think the other one is a lot better. Now, giving this set a rating, and especially if I should recommend it to you guys or not, is not a very easy task. Like I mentioned earlier, I really do not like this TIE Fighter, although on the other hand, I really like the X-Wing, and if this X-Wing was its own set, I would without a doubt recommend it to you guys because I think it looks really good. However, the inclusion of this TIE Fighter is obviously driving the price up like an extra $50 or so it's really kind of hard to say if I'd recommend it, although what I think is best to say is that if you already have a TIE Fighter and an X-Wing, I would honestly just pass on this set unless you really want this X-Wing, which I wouldn't blame you because it is pretty good. And if you somehow do not have a TIE Fighter and X-Wing, I would wait until this set goes on sale because I think $110 is a little bit overpriced. $100 would be more ideal. So again, if you don't have either a TIE Fighter or an X-Wing, I would wait until this goes on sale, maybe $100 or $90. I'm feeling a pretty decent 7.5 out of 10 for this set. Again, the TIE Fighter is just holding the X-Wing back quite a bit. I would give the X-Wing a solid 9 or 9.5 out of 10, but for this set as a whole, I'm feeling a 7.5. So let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see them on screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75394 Imperial Star Destroyer. This set just released on August 1st with 1,555 pieces and a retail price of $160. And this set is part of celebrating the 25th anniversary of LEGO Star Wars, and because of that, it comes with a 25th anniversary Cal Kestis minifigure. And as some of you might know, this is the very first time that LEGO has ever made this character before. And also, speaking of this being a 25th anniversary set, I've said this time and time again, but the 25th anniversary box art is one of my favorite box arts of all time. The silver metallic blue just pops so much and looks really cool to me, and it especially works really well with this Star Destroyer. On the back of the box, you're going to see a render of how the entire set can open up and access the interior, as well as some pictures at the bottom that showcase some of the other play features. And also, if you look at the top here, the back of the box art looks like it's set on Corellia. It's nothing crazy, but I just thought it was cool and something that was worth pointing out. Anyways, now actually opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find 14 separately numbered bags, as well as your instruction manual and a sticker sheet in this cardboard case, with the instruction manual having a pretty ugly and poor looking render on the front of it, which doesn't look that great, but anyways, it also has a total of 300 pages. And then you're going to have a pretty decently large sticker sheet with a total of 13 stickers. The first figures we have up here is the Imperial crew member on the left and then Commander Prodigy on the right, and they both look pretty good. They're about as detailed as they need to be. I kind of wish Prodigy had some leg printing like the crew member, but it's not that big of a deal. Next up here we have the Imperial gunner, and this is also a pretty good looking figure. Very simple, but it gets the job done, and I really like its helmet mold a lot. And if you're wondering, here is what the face looks like underneath. And then next up here we of course have the Family Guy oversized helmet stormtrooper. It's the same one that we've been getting for years now, and I mean, it is just our default stormtrooper in this current time period, but I am always going to point out how I think the helmet is atrociously oversized and blocky looking, and hopefully someday in the coming years LEGO will fix this and we'll get a better stormtrooper helmet mold. Anyways though, if you're wondering considering this is what the face looks like underneath. And then next up here we have the Imperial Navy Trooper, and I think this figure looks awesome. It's pretty unique and has a really awesome helmet mold, and also a pretty cool looking double-sided face that I think fits this figure really well. Although it doesn't have leg printing, again, like Captain Prodigy, I wish it did. It's not a big deal, but I mean, it's just preferable because this is a pretty expensive set. Then next up here we have Darth Vader. This is the current arm printed Darth Vader that we have been getting for a few years now. I think it was introduced in 2022, maybe 2021, but it works. I mean, this is arguably, actually not arguably, this is objectively the best Darth Vader they have ever made, and I'm just glad that it's the default one they're using in all of his respective sets now. It's really kind of timeless, and I honestly really wouldn't be surprised if it's here to stay for 10 more years or so. But then last, and certainly not least, we have the most hyped up figure in this set being Cal Kestis, and I think he looks great. He's got a really awesome looking torso print with the brown and the blue. I think it works really well together. He's also got nice leg printing and back printing, along with a pretty cool looking second face print that's sort of an angry face. Although the elephant in the room with this figure is that he does not include his poncho that is pretty heavily shown throughout the game. And I'm honestly with everyone on this. I really wish he would have included his poncho, although at the same time, this figure, in my opinion, does look good enough to where like it's not necessarily the end of the world like some people are making it out to be. But I mean, again, it is the very first time they're making a fairly popular character that people have wanted for a long time, so I do think it's pretty annoying that they didn't give him everything that he needs to have. But at the same time, in my opinion, the prints on the figure do look good enough to where it's not necessarily the end of the world. But again, like everyone else, I do wish he included his poncho. And like the rest of the 25th anniversary figures, he does include a printed plaque that you can connect to the other figures to make a nice little display. But overall, I think this minifigure lineup is pretty solid, besides that Family Guy Stormtrooper, of course, and Cal not having his poncho. I do think for $160, we maybe could have gotten one more figure, maybe a second Imperial Navy Trooper, but I don't think it's that big of a deal because the ones that we do get complement the Star Destroyer pretty well. And speaking of the Star Destroyer itself, I have to say it's gorgeous. I honestly cannot put into words how good this set actually looks. It is so incredibly detailed, and I'd say it is the best looking playscale Star Destroyer that LEGO has made by a long shot. Like, I really am just kind of speechless at how well they did with this. It is just perfectly well built, it's extremely detailed, and just looks really good. Although, the elephant in the room with this set is that it's pretty small, especially compared to the previous two models. I unfortunately don't have the 2014 model on hand right now, but this picture by I Am Wicked on Instagram really shows how much the newer model has been downsized, and here it is compared to the $180 Dark Millennium Falcon that also released on August 1st. And funny enough, this Dark Falcon is basically the same size as the 2019 Millennium Falcon, and the Star Destroyer is the set that got downsized compared to its previous model. And honestly, in my opinion, I think the Falcon was the set that should have been downsized and retailed for $160, and the Star Destroyer should have been the set that was $180 and been the same size as the 2014 model, and also the most expensive playset of the year. And also, I've seen the argument people are making that like, oh, I like how it's smaller because it's easier to fit on shelves or easier to store, and I personally think this is just kind of a dumb argument. I mean, LEGO can't really cater to how much room you have to display your LEGO sets. Like, when they make a new Death Star, you can't expect it to be downsized to fit on your desk or your shelf or something. It's the freaking Death Star. It's gonna be a massive set because it's a massive ship in Star Wars, and the same thing goes for these capital ships like a Star Destroyer. They are very massive ships, so I think it's kind of a no-brainer that they should be the biggest playsets in a year. And if you don't have room to store them or display them, I guess just make room or look for a smaller set. And if you want a better idea of the size, here it is compared to some other sets like the Ghost from last year, which is also $160, and the 2022 ATTE, which is $140. But like I said, the actual Star Destroyer itself, despite being downsized, looks very good, so let's dive into all the details. On the outside of the front here, you're just gonna have some very minor details and very minor greebling, with a few dark gray pieces mixed in on both sides. But when you get up to the middle area and the bulk of the ship is where it starts to get very detailed. The shaping around this area is just impressive. I could go on and on about how good they did with this, and there's even some little clear transparent pieces on the front and both sides to represent some lights and some windows in the Star Destroyer. And there's even lots of detailing and greebling and good shaping on the back of this area as well. They just did a very good job. The big turbo lasers on each side look really good as well. You can point the actual barrels themselves up and down, but the main feature with these things is that on the back here there are these little pieces that stick out, and you can pull and push on them, and what this does is actually make all of the turrets in unison aim back and forth. And I just think this is a really fun play feature. It's super simple, but it works so well, and it's just really fun to play with, to be honest. And then also around this area, these two panels right here can actually lift lift up to reveal your handle to hold the set. And I have to say, it works really well, and it's actually very sturdy. Like, I'm shaking this thing around pretty hard right here, and it's staying intact and holding up very well. I have to give props to LEGO for making this a pretty structurally sound build. You also might have noticed that there are two green spring-loaded shooters on the front right here, and there are these little buttons on both sides on the back that you can just press down, and it fires both the spring-loaded shooters. And this actually works very well. It's super efficient on how good they fire, and it's definitely one of the best mechanisms I've ever seen on a set to fire spring-loaded shooters. Taking a look at the actual bridge area, it looks super detailed as well. As you can see here, there's a sticker right on the front to represent the windows, and then there's some pretty nice greebling and detailing on the back of both sides, and you can kind of get a good idea at how they're able to pull this shape off. The top looks really good as well, although the actual tractor beams, the balls on each side, are perfectly rounded, when if you look at an actual Star Destroyer, they're sort of like an octagon or honeycomb shape. I don't know how to describe it, but they're not perfectly rounded, and right here they are. It's just a small nitpick on my part. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I do wish these were the right shape. And then this sloped part behind the bridge looks very good as well, whatever you want to call it, the spine I guess. And then right below that you have the engines, which also, like everything else, look really good. I think they got the shaping of this back area and all the details down pretty much perfectly, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Now, to access the interior, this whole section right here can actually just very easily lift up. It just sits on there and isn't attached. And then from there, you can easily fold open both panels on each side, and you have complete and pretty easy access to the entire interior. Now, starting off in the back left here, there is a little stickered control panel as well as two crates. The smaller one has detonators in it, and the larger one has a little pair of white binoculars. Then right in front of that, you're gonna have a little desk area with a spinny chair, and the desk has a printed control panel and a coffee cup on it. And you can take one of your figures like Captain Prodigy and sit him in the chair, and he has a little clip for his gun as well. Then in the middle of the back, there are two large transparent pieces with some stickers on them that depict some information about the Star Destroyer, as well as some information about TIE fighters on the right one. And then right in front of that, you're gonna have a little gun rack with two extra blasters. Towards the back right, there is another stickered control panel, and then right below that, you're gonna have this hologram, which I think is supposed to depict some type of battle. It looks like there's the Star Destroyer sitting there, and then the red pieces are supposed to represent enemy ships, I guess. And you can take one of your figures and sit it in front of this like they're kind of analyzing the hologram. Then right next to that, you're gonna have another little area with a blue syringe as well as a printed control panel, and then this little storage thing that has what I guess is just supposed to be a hologram inside of it. And around this area, there is plenty of room for you to sit any of the figures that you want to. And now moving on to the actual bridge itself, at the back of it here, you're gonna find three printed control panels, as well as quite a few stickers on the center and each side. The centered ones are kind of like staggered, every other one facing the opposite direction. And I guess if you want, there's actually room to sit your Imperial officer down here and act like he's manning the control panels. And then on the bridge walkway itself, obviously that's where you can sit Darth Vader himself. Although as you'd expect, you can't leave him there when you try to close the Star Destroyer back up, because there's not enough room, so you'll just have to find somewhere else to sit him. But then from there, you can easily fold both panels on each side back up, and then grab your large centerpiece and try to sit it back down. Sometimes it gets caught on things, but it's not too tricky to put back in. And then from there, that is everything there is to see in this Star Destroyer. Now, would I recommend this set to you for $160? And honestly, I think it's pretty worth it. The build, for the most part, actually feels like it's worth its retail price, which is pretty rare for LEGO Star Wars sets today in 2024. And also, this is the first playscale Star Destroyer they've made in literally 10 years. I think that alone is a good enough reason to go out and get this set if you don't have the 2014 or 2006 model. And I honestly just think this is going to end up being one of those sets that's on shelves for at least 3 or 4 years, just because it's so popular and exceed the typical 2-year lifespan of LEGO Star Wars sets. So there's really no rush to go out and get this right now. It's probably going to be on shelves for years and years to come, but I do recommend that at some point you guys go out and try to get your hands on this if you don't have the previous 2 models, because it is a really great set. Like I said, the detailing is just immaculate. It's the best looking Star Destroyer LEGO has made by a long shot, although again, I do think it is a bit too small, so because of that, I'm just going to take off half a point and give it a 9.5 out of 10. I truly think this thing is incredible. I just wish it was a little bit bigger. Let me know what you think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see them on screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75396 Desert Skiff and Sarlacc Pit. This set will be releasing in just about a week from now on August 1st with 558 pieces and a retail price of $80 US, possibly making this one of the most overpriced sets of all time. On the bright side though, it is part of celebrating the 25th anniversary of LEGO Star Wars, so because of that, it comes with an exclusive 25th anniversary Nien Nunb minifigure, and this is actually the first time LEGO has ever made him. I thought he came in the 2014 B-Wing, but no, that was Tin Nub all along, and I guess I didn't know. Tano. So it's very exciting that we are finally seeing this iconic character in this set. And then taking a look at the back of the box, you're going to find another render of the desert skiff and the Sarlacc pit, along with multiple pictures showing all of the play features. And also, speaking of the box in general, I know I've said this time and time again this year with these sets, but the 25th anniversary box art is one of the best box arts LEGO has ever made. I don't know what it is, it's just super bright and appealing, and I think it looks really, really great. But now actually digging into the box, on the inside you're going to find 6 numbered bags, along with these 2 loose brown wire pieces, and not 1 but 2 separate instruction manuals. And now moving on to the minifigures, first up here we have Han Solo, and for the most part he looks about as good as he needs to look. There is no leg printing, but at the same time he doesn't necessarily need it, and as you can see he does have a double-sided face print, with the second face being his sort of closed eye look. And then next up here we have Luke Skywalker, and I think he looks great. I really like the gray and the black combination. It isn't necessarily accurate, but at the same time I do think it just looks pretty dang good. And if you're wondering, yes, this Luke Skywalker is exclusive. He does have different printing than the one that came in the final Duel diorama from last year, and he too also has a double-sided face. Then next up here we have one of the best figures in this set, being Lando Calrissian in his guard disguise, and I think he looks incredible. His helmet mold is awesome, and he has pretty much flawless printing from head to toe, as well as some pretty nice back printing here, and just like Han and Luke, he too has a double-sided face. Then next up here we have Boba Fett, which is the controversial and sort of hot topic for this set, and before I get into that, I do have to say this figure on its own does look very, very good. He's got great printing all around, even underneath his jetpack on the back, as well as very, very nice arm printing on both arms, although the main problem and the reason this figure is controversial is because this is the episode 5 version of Boba Fett, and clearly this is an episode 6 set. If you don't know the difference, in episode 6 his armor is not supposed to be light blue, it's actually supposed to be more of a gray color, and they got this right with the desert skiffs in the past, and they even included his green pauldron, but in this one they messed up and gave us the episode 5 version of Boba Fett, and on top of that he doesn't have his pauldron. And I think the reason that this is the wrong Boba Fett is because this is the exact same Boba Fett that was in the mech from last year, which is kind of based off of episode 5 if you'd say, and I would love to give LEGO the benefit of the doubt, but this just seems too obvious. I think they just didn't want to design a new Boba Fett, and they already had this one in production, so they just decided to throw him in this set, and that's honestly really disappointing. We haven't gotten an episode 6 Boba Fett in a very long time, and this was our chance to see an upgraded one with arm printing, and they didn't give it to us. They were lazy and gave us another episode 5 version. On the bright side though, Nub looks really, really good. LEGO did a pretty much perfect job with this figure. I really don't have much to say. He just looks really dang good all around, and this is probably going to be a selling point for this set for a lot of people. And like the other 25th anniversary figures, he does come with the 25th anniversary stand that you can connect to the stands of the other 25th anniversary figures and make a little display. And then very last and pretty much least, we have Chewbacca. There's not much to see here. This is the same Chewbacca that we have literally been getting for about a decade now, I think. But I mean, it works and he still holds up with the other figures. At this point, Chewbacca is kind of just like one of the battle droids. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. Now, besides Boba Fett being inaccurate, which is pretty much unacceptable for $80, the rest of the figures look really, really good. However, there is one figure that's missing that this set desperately needed, and later you'll see why this is more of a problem, but it's a weak way guard. And the reason this set needs it is because there's literally no antagonists in this set besides Boba Fett. If you look on the box art, literally all of the main good guy characters are on the skiff by themselves, and there's no weak way guard in sight, and I just think it looks a bit goofy. And on top of that, there are supposed to be weak way guards in the upcoming UCS sail barge in October, which just doesn't make much sense. In the movie, they were seen on the desert skiffs, they weren't really seen inside the sail barge, so why couldn't LEGO just add one into this set? And for how overpriced this set is, I think we could have easily gotten 8 figures, the extra one being the weak way guard obviously, but if LEGO just wants to cheap out that much, I think they should have just put Lando in the UCS sail barge and put a weak way guard in this set. It would have made way more sense for playability, and this version of Lando is not necessarily a super popular character. He's not Captain Rex, so I don't think any kids would really care that he's not in this set. But now moving on to the actual builds themselves, I think they both look really, really good. First, taking a look at the Sarlacc pit here, a lot of people online are talking about how they don't like how many sand pieces there are and how big and tall it is, but I honestly really, really like the way that this looks. I just like terrain and LEGO sets in general, and I think they did a great job with the sand here, and I also just really like how they raised it off the ground and then lowered the middle end and actually tried to make it look like it's a pit. They sold it pretty well, and I'm actually pretty impressed with it. Another thing people don't like is that the back end is kind of just bare bones. There's just a black Technic piece back here, but this doesn't even matter at all because if you're displaying it, you can just face this in towards the wall and it still looks really, really good on display. Another thing you might have noticed on the back is that there are these 2 levers right here, and if you turn them, you can actually make both the tentacles move, and I think it looks really, really great. This is an awesome play feature that's very simple, but at the same time just fun to play with because it looks really cool and and makes it look like it's actually alive. The beak, on the other hand, has to be manually opened and closed, I mean, which isn't a bad thing. And if you're wondering, it's just connected via these clips. And if you want, you can grab one of your minifigures, maybe Boba Fett, and put him in the mouth, which does kind of sound like a goofy idea, but I'm not gonna lie, it looks really cool, and this would definitely be a great way to display this Sarlacc pit. And then towards the middle on the inside, there are some teeth pieces and a few dark tan pieces to add some extra detail. Now, one slight problem I have with this build is around the inside. It's just a bit too open and a bit too flat. I think it would have helped a lot if the tentacles were maybe just one stud closer to the beak, or if there were tentacles on the front and the back as well, and not just on the two sides. To me at least, it just looks a bit too spacey around the mouth area and the tentacles, but for the most part, with the Sarlacc pit as a whole, they did a very good job, and I'm pretty impressed with it. Now, taking a look at the desert skiff, I think it looks pretty much flawless. I'm honestly kind of speechless with how good this is. Now, you could say that it shouldn't be tan, it should be more of a dark brown color, but I mean, I don't think it really matters, because if you look at pictures of desert skiffs, sometimes they're dark browns, sometimes they're tan, and sometimes they're gray, so I don't think it really matters that LEGO chose this color. On the front here, you're gonna have some really nice shaping, as well as this wire piece that kind of goes around and adds for some nice detail, and if you want, this is a really good place to sit Han and Chewie in their handcuffs. And then towards the middle here, this railing piece can swing open, and then on the other side, there is this little circular tile that you can push that actually makes the plank come out. It's super easy, it's just plates sliding on top of each other, and it works really well. And then obviously, you can take Luke Skywalker and sit him on the end of the plank. Although the problem is, who is actually behind him, making him walk off? The only figures behind him are Lando, Han, and Chewie. Yes, Lando is on the desert skiff in the scene, but he's not the one making Luke walk off. It's a weakway guard. Again, it should have had one. And then it gets even worse. Towards the back here, you can see a very nice looking control panel or control station, two joysticks, whatever you want to call it. They look really good. Like I said, this desert skiff is pretty much flawless, although there's unfortunately no weakway guard to drive the skiff. You could throw Boba Fett back here, but that looks really goofy and is not accurate to the scene at all. So I guess Luke, Han, and Lando just drove the desert skiff to the Sarlacc pit because they wanted to, and Luke is walking the plank because he feels like it. Anyways, on the bright side, the very back of the skiff also looks very good. There's these four thrusters back here that are kind of staggered and give off a really cool look. And then you also have the two large fin pieces back here with a really nice use of the sun hat piece. They can move up and down and sort of twist here, and you can position them how you want. However, I think they look best when you sort of angle them down like this. And then if you're wondering what the bottom looks like, there's really nothing to see, just the bottom of the plates, and then these transparent pieces that hold it up and sort of make it appear like it's hovering. And speaking of those transparent pieces holding it up, the actual desert skiff itself is not much taller than the Sarlacc pit. You can just barely have the plank over the actual mouth, but I think it looks a bit crammed. So in my opinion, the best way to display it is just like this, just space them out a little bit. Now the builds and the figures that actually belong in this set, especially Nien Nunb, are really the only thing this set has going for it. Again, the price is just absolutely terrible. $80 for this. I don't care about price per piece. I don't care about price per gram. This is not even close to $80. I think at most it should have been $65. They might have been able to get away with $70, but $65 preferably. $80 just way too much. But again, like I said, the builds are really nice, and Nien Nunb is an awesome figure, and so is Lando. So if you ever find this set on sale for below $70, I would highly recommend that you pick it up for the Sarlacc pit build, the desert skiff build, and for Nien Nunb. But for $80, unless you just for some reason really want it, I would just not get this set. So again, the builds are great, the figures that belong in this set are great, although they gave us an episode 5 version of Boba Fett, and there is not a weekly guard when there very clearly should be one, and the price again is just atrocious. So I'm feeling a pretty generous 7.8 out of 10. I would give it a 7.5, but again, those builds are really good, so I'm going to give it 0.3 points and make it a 7.8. Let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see them on the end screen right now. Today we're going to be taking a look at 75398 C3PO. This set just released on August 1st with 1,138 pieces and a retail price of $140. This is the only 18 plus set that is releasing in this large August wave, and it's honestly getting kind of overshadowed by a lot of the other sets, which in my opinion actually makes this kind of underrated. Anyways though, on the back of the box you're going to find another render of the build, as well as some pictures of C3PO and R2-D2 in episode 4, and then at the top right you're going to find a diagram of the dimension dimensions of this build. Oh, and also on the side of the box, there's also this cool little logo of C-3PO and R2-D2. Anyways, actually opening up the box and diving in, on the inside you're going to find 11 separately numbered bags, as well as this cardboard case that contains your instruction manual and your sticker sheet. Since this is an 18+ set, by tradition, the first few pages of the instruction manual have a lot of information about the build. You can pause and read all this if you want to. It is a pretty fun read. There's a lot of information about C-3PO and Star Wars, information about C-3PO and Lego, information about the person who designed this set, and then from there you're going to hop straight into your building process. The one and only minifigure in this set is of course C-3PO himself, and this is the exact same one that came in the UCS Luke's Landspeeder from 2022 that is extremely detailed with the dual molded legs and side leg printing, and then the one leg being a gray leg, as well as arm printing. This really has it all. It's a top-notch figure, and it makes sense that they reuse this one. I mean, this is an 18+ set that retails for $140, so it really makes sense that they're putting in the highest quality C-3PO they have. And you also might have noticed this set comes with a plaque that can hold a minifigure that has all the information about C-3PO himself in Star Wars, as well as this little 25th anniversary brick that has been coming with a lot of different sets this year. The C-3PO build itself is impressive, to say the least. It's obviously not the most popular set this year, and definitely not the most popular set from this wave, although that does not mean it should be overlooked. When I built this thing, I was genuinely kind of blown away about how good of a job they did with it. It's not 100% perfect though, which I will dive into all of that, but for the most part, this thing is really impressive. The little stand and terrain area is probably my favorite part of this build. I always like when some type of terrain is included in LEGO Star Wars sets, and this is a perfect example of that. And also, not to mention, the way they were able to get the feet to sit on the terrain at the angle they're sitting at is really impressive. It has a pretty ingenious design with ball joints to be able to achieve this stance, and I was actually having a really fun time building it because I just thought it was really fun and creative. And also, if you look at it from the side, his legs are actually slightly leaning forward and then his chest is popping out, which really captures that sort of curious and perked up look that C-3PO is supposed to have, and it's pretty cool. The actual legs and feet themselves look good too, especially the silver one. It's got a mix of light bluish gray and chromed out silver pieces. I saw some people online complaining that there would be too much of a contrast between these two colors, but now that I have it in person, it's actually not that noticeable, and I think it blends really well, and it wouldn't look as good if it was all one color. And then moving on from there, his thighs, his butt, his crotch, it all looks pretty good for the most part. LEGO did a good job and had the attention to detail on these parts. And right above the waist area, there's going to be some stickers that wrap all the way around, and honestly, this is an 18+ set, so I would prefer these to be printed. However, it's not that big of a deal because they're pretty large stickers, they weren't very hard to put on, and in the end, they do add some great detail around this area. And then right above them, on the center of his chest, is going to be this printed circular disc piece, as well as this printed tile at the top of his chest that sort of gives him some pecs. His hands are on ball joints, so they can move pretty freely and pose however you want, and there's also stickers in his palms that represent some exposed wire. His fingers can also move up and down and pose how you want. They look pretty good, but for some reason, for me at least, these were like kind of a pain to build because you have to space them out evenly. Maybe it was just my OCD, I don't know. And then his arms at the shoulders can spin pretty much all the way around 360 degrees. They can't actually bend at the elbow joint. They can twist a little bit, but they can't bend. But what really matters is that they can move at the shoulders, and because of this, you can make some pretty unique poses with it. And the arms themselves look really good. There's some nice detailing around the shoulders, and there's even these pieces that are supposed to represent the hydraulic pistons that move with his arms. Now, everything about this set has been pretty much perfect so far, although the head, specifically his face, is really where the problems are. It's kind of like the same thing that Chewbacca had from last year, although not near as bad. Something about his eyes and his mouth just look off. I can't really point it out, but it just doesn't look right, although I can't really count this against them too much because like it is brick built. There's a very limited amount of ways they can make an actual face, so I do think they probably did the best they could have done. It just still doesn't look completely right. I really think the actual worst part is with his mouth. The triangle piece just stands out so much. It is printed, by the way, but still, it stands out so much. And the only thing I can think of to really make this a little bit better is to make those slope pieces the same color as the actual mouthpiece, because if you look really close, the slope pieces behind the mouth are a bit of a darker shade of gold, and I think if they were both the same colors, it would blend in a bit more and not stand out as much and look as awkward. But other than that, I really don't think there's much they could have done. I think it just kind of inevitably is going to look off because it's hard to make a face with Lego pieces. But on the bright side though, the back of its head looks good. Now, one of the most hyped up and talked about things with this set is that it was said to be able to pair really well with the buildable R2-D2 that came out in March, and I have to say it definitely does. This is a 10 out of 10 display piece right here. here. They are to scale with each other and you can pose them in many different ways and they look amazing. I honestly think if you have the R2-D2 from last year, this set is almost a must buy. And even better, if you're one of those weirdos that bought the $200 Chewbacca from last year like me, he is also to scale with C-3PO and R2-D2, so it literally makes for the perfect trio and the perfect display piece. Buildable characters aren't the most talked about or fan favorited sets, but when they pair together like this, they are incredible. Although back to C-3PO, would I recommend this set to you for $140? Now, if you have the R2-D2 from March, I think it's almost a no-brainer because they just fit so well together. Although if you don't have the R2-D2 and you're on the fence, I would honestly wait until it goes on sale because I do think $140 is a bit overpriced. I think $120 would have been way more fitting, but again, if you have the R2-D2, I think $140 is worth it just because this display piece for a total of $240 looks absolutely phenomenal. But if you do not have the R2-D2, I would honestly advise you to wait until it goes on sale. But other than it potentially being overpriced, I really have no issues with this set at all. I think the build is incredible. I would count how the face looks against them, but I mean, again, like, I think they did the best they could. I really do. It's nearly impossible to make faces with Lego. They maybe could have improved it somehow, but there's really no blatantly obvious ways that this could be better. So because of that, I would give the actual build itself a 10 out of 10. But for a set as a whole, I'm feeling a pretty strong 9.5 out of 10 just because I think that price point is a bit too high. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing. And if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see them on the screen right now.